Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Grizzly's on the Hunt. From coast to coast and around the world, we have something unique and different today. We're going to have a little fun, I say. What should we do today? What sounds interesting? I do have a guest that is returning. This is one of your all's favorites, I could say. Shall we check on him, see how he's doing? Backstage. Yeah, let's bring him on and let's see how he's doing. Glenn! How you doing?
Good morning, afternoon.
What's going on, boy?
Not much. What about you?
Oh, living the dream from Lexington, Kentucky, from coast to coast and around the world.
And hiding in a deep, remote corner of Atlanta.
Ooh. All right, man. So what you been up to?
Oh, trying to avoid the rain, which is impossible. So,
yeah, man, I'm booked today. I really am. I've got stuff that I got to do back to back today shows and
well, apparently
yeah,
I'm just a guy you call every now and then and be like, yeah, why don't you come on? You know.
Well, actually, I had a guy scheduled. And I guess something must have come up and he didn't get a hold of me. So, you know, I do depend on you sometimes. You know, yeah, there's other people I can get a hold of. But
I guess I'm good for something, right? You know?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something. I have found this camera set. Now, check this out. I should have got it for I put on the show, but I was running behind because I stayed up real late watching UFOs and mysteries and stuff. So, but it was real interesting that yeah, I think it comes with 6 cameras that are wireless. Okay, wireless, and they all go to your phone. It's Bluetooth. And you can adjust each camera on your phone where it picks up, and it's infrared. So I can put these cameras around on trails, hidden, and they last up to 2 years on one AA battery.
I don't buy it. 2 years? Cold kills batteries. No way. I don't buy it.
Well, I ain't going out there in the cold. I'll wait till it's going to get warmer.
Wuss.
Yep. But
a real researcher does not rain, sleet, or snow.
Okay. But I bought the set. And it was on sale for $100 off. I was like, oh! I was like, come on, Captain. I was like, I got to have it. I got to have it.
You have to send me the link. I'll check it out. I just bought a wireless camera too, but mine's Wi-Fi. So I just bought mine to.
Now hold up. Now mine's Wi-Fi too. I'm getting the link, and it's ready to be picked up. I thought I had it shipped, but I was wrong.
So you got to go pick it up.
Yeah.
You never leave the house.
Yeah, I do.
You're a recluse. I follow you on Google Maps. I know better. You stay hidden.
Yeah, we were supposed to talk about UFOs today, but I guess we're not. So
UFOs, well, they're out there. So
yeah, well, they are.
I did just find an interesting channel on Pluto TV. You know, every now and then when I get bored, I'll get tired of the regular 200 Xfinity channels. And I mean, college football's over, so that kind of sucks. Well, I mean, it's not over, but it's practically over. NFL is, you know, ramping up towards the end of the season, so do have that Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Monday. Wish I'd had another night. So I was surfing around and I found Pluto TV has I think it's paranormal channel or something like that. It's 24/7 spooky stuff. So
Really?
yeah, I fell asleep watching UFOs. Then I think I was abducted. I'm not sure, but it could have happened. So
Was it a sexy alien?
well, whenever you're probed, you just close your eyes and pray for the best. What was it? They said you can close your eyes and be with any woman in the world. So
Did you come back with glitter?
no, there was no stripper glitter with this one. So interestingly enough, I did lose an hour and 5 minutes of time earlier this week. So
now that's crazy.
well, it's happened to me before. So
I know. I sit on the couch and woke up and it's dark. So
that's because you were asleep at night. So
you remember that one day where I fell asleep and I thought I slept all day and it was midnight and it was light out and I was freaking out.
Yeah.
I was like, I called a couple of people. I called Glenn. I was like, something ain't right. And he's like, what? I'm like, it's light out. He goes, yeah. I'm like, no, it's light out. It shouldn't be light out right now.
Only light in Kentucky.
And I'm like, something's not right. I thought it was midnight. And I finally told him what was going on. He finally laughed at me. So
kind of like your message at 2 a.m. last night. And my first question was, are you high?
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, Lordy. I know, man. You never know with me.
Old people in technology.
Yeah. Now, I feel sorry for my guest. He actually emailed me at 12:37, said, could you please forward me the links to my email?
Did he do it in that voice?
Hello, Fido.
So, but I texted him the link so he could have emailed himself.
I don't know. If he's elderly, maybe there's a problem with technology. I don't know. Old people in technology, I haven't figured it out. So
this guy is pretty smart. I'm telling you. I'm trying to find the link for you so you can look at it.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So, but no, I was very impressed what I saw.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I may have the need for I will have the need for wireless cameras when I go to Knoxville. But I may have to put off my Knoxville trip a bit longer because apparently the COVID is going around up there and I want no part of that. So
right. I don't blame you.
So there was an interesting study out that I've been discussing in a group, and apparently I'm quite controversial by saying that the science is actually correct on it and stop believing the talking heads and educate yourself. So there's a new study out that the talking heads are saying that the unvaccinated are at a higher risk for automobile accidents.
Dude, what?
Yeah. So if you actually pull up the study and read it, and I don't know why the Journal of actually it was an American. Well, I guess I can't say that. They're on the continent. It was done in Canada by the American Journal of American Medicine. I think it was American Medicine. Well, it was one of the big medical journals. I can pull it up here. Hold on, because I downloaded it because I'm ready to argue with people over this one. It is the make it bigger because I'm blind. I can't see. The American Journal of Medicine. COVID vaccine hesitancy and the risk of traffic crash is the name of it. So the study finds if you're unvaccinated, you're more likely to be involved in an automobile accident than if you're not vaccinated. Now, a lot of people are just listening to the talking heads and going, oh no, the unvaccinated are going to get us again. People, remain calm, read the science, and look at it. And even the study will tell you. I'm gonna maybe you'll get a live caller, or maybe you'll get somebody who wants to argue. So I won't get to the crux of it. But by God, if you're not vaccinated, you're gonna drive head on into a telephone pole.
Well, that's not
you
nice.
you heard it here first. So
you are so bad.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people out there that like to argue, but yet they don't want to do the research. Kind of like in the Bigfoot world, but that's not the link to it. Oh, you bought it at Best Buy?
Yeah, hold up. I'm giving you the specs on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there, like I said, in the research world, whether you're looking at UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and basically the paranormal. They would rather read the headlines, flip through social media, which we all know, if Twitter hasn't proven that, is influenced by who you follow and your friends. Shocker. Then you're not getting the right information. You got to do your own homework. Kind of like when you're in school, the teacher said, "Did you do your homework?" "Oh, yeah, I did it." "Well, how come little Johnny made it F and you did too?" So, yeah, I got a credit at Best Buy I could use. Are they weatherproof?
Yes.
Are they going to allow the Chinese to spy on me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they probably will. But I already got TikTok on my phone, so who knows?
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, well, they've already got you. They already got you. I mean, what's another government following me? I mean, I got the U.S., might as well have China,
God, you're going to get another call.
Wait a minute. I'm going to get another call?
Yeah, bring up that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's rated for desert heat and cold weather. -4. -4 is pretty cold. Night vision, black and white. Yeah. Camera resolution, it's 1080. Yeah. 110 field. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to check this thing out because I might just have to spend that credit money.
Yeah, it's actually $100 off.
Yeah, well, I won't tell the missus. And she doesn't listen to your show, so I'm safe. So.
Yeah.
She said she heard you ask somebody if they believed in Santa Claus, and she tuned you out. And I said, "What? Grizz would never do that. Everybody knows Santa's real." So how many listeners have we got? Have I stirred up any controversy yet?
No, you probably don't have any because this was a short notice one. So.
Oh, great. So you put me on when there's nobody here. And I can't stir up trouble.
No.
We can talk about Santa. It's one letter away from Satan.
Oh, don't say that.
Too short notice. I couldn't find a stripper for the show. Good.
He actually just texted me. He said, "Hey, Chris, I emailed you ... Asked for the link so I could log in from my laptop. I just told him, so I don't check my email. That's why I text you.
Well, people in
so
technology.
Email.
That's why you have email accounts where junk goes to. And you have one where important things go to.
Well, that's why I always hit unsubscribe and hit report junk.
Well, okay then.
Yeah, I tell you about my holy water trip.
Where he invited you in and said he needed to talk to you behind closed quarters or something.
Oh Lord, I thought I told you. Yeah,
you probably did, and I either didn't listen or wasn't paying attention, or I don't know. Why? What did he say, Chris? Did he tell you that?
No, really? Did I not tell you or not?
I think you did. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
so
pretty
what
sure
happened?
You went and picked it up, and you were left alone in the whatever you call it, the hall. I'm not church going, so I don't know who. So
and he went to the auditorium.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he brought you in, and he's like, "Here, drink some of this," and you were like, "Why?" And you were like, "No, it's holy water."
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what happened was is I wanted some holy water, and I'm not Catholic, no offense to anybody. I'm Southern Baptist. And
so if you were Catholic and Baptist, would you be a Baptist? Asking for a friend.
Could be. So I called Father Miguel up. He usually blesses my coins. And wanted the prayers on them for firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, whatnot, challenge coins. And told him, I said, hey, Father Miguel. And he's like, hey, Grizzly. And, of course, he's got this accent because he's Hispanic. He's one of the fathers I deal with. He's like, hey, I said, I need some holy water. He's like, sure, no problem. He said, come today. And I'm like, oh, no, not today. I'm too booked, too busy. Tomorrow. I'm like, no, not tomorrow. He said, Friday. I'm like, yes. What time Friday? He's like, 9 o'clock. And I was like, ugh. So much for me sleeping in. So I went up there at 10 till 9, and I was outside the locked doors, and I see him come walking, and he shouted at me. I shouted back. We both waved. When he comes up, we both shake hands, greet each other, ask how we're both doing. He opens up the hallway door leading to the auditorium, and he goes into a closet with the light on, and he's sitting there. I don't know if he was whistling or humming. He's in there.
You do realize this is only an hour-long show, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes. And then he closes the door and he walks in the auditorium. Now, mind you, the priests, the fathers, wear black robes, right? The auditorium's pitch black, and it's a very large auditorium. And he just fades into darkness, and he's gone.
You spook easily.
It's like, man, that was spooky. Because he just blended right in, disappeared. So I'm outside the auditorium and I'm waiting. I don't know, a couple minutes goes by and I'm like, how's he walking by through there? I can't even see in there. So I'm about to go in there and holler for him. And next thing I know, I see him come out of the darkness and he's smiling, holding 2 wine bottles. I'm like, yay, we're drinking today. And I was like, no, there's no way. And I was like, well, if we drink, I'm not driving. So heck with it. So he comes out of the auditorium. He's like, Grizzly, wine. And I'm like, yeah, now we're on the right track. And I go over to him and he hands them to me and they're wet. And I'm like, and for the same thing, he's like, holy water and wine bottles. Is that enough holy water? And I looked at him, and the first thing I was thinking, do I look like I need that much protection?
Yes, you do.
Then I was thinking to myself, okay, I got 2 wine bottles with seals broken. There's liquid inside. I get hit. Law enforcement shows up and says, Grizzly, we're going to cite you for open containers, and we're going to do some field sobriety test. Well, I would probably fail the field sobriety test because I cannot walk a straight line right now. And I couldn't even balance probably on 1 foot. But I would pass the stickness test. I can never say that right. The eye test. No problem. Yeah, I can blow into his little PBT all day long. No problem. But, I was just thinking about that. So I was really nervous. So I kind of hit him in the trunk and covered him up really good.
Breaking the law.
Yeah. So then I ordered some bottles, containers that got golden crosses on them. I think angel wings. So when I got them in, I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and use a funnel and transfer some of the holy water from the wine bottles to my little bottles where you can carry around. You can just sling water when you want. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to call Father Miguel up or Father Horton and ask for more holy water and just take those containers and they can just fill them up for me. So that's my story.
You don't think for a minute he just goes in the back and fills it up out of the tap, do you? Just asking.
He better not.
Well,
See, in the front of the auditorium,
how are you going to know?
There's a fountain. Well, I know when I go to some place
the fountain comes from the public water supply.
Some activity shows up at my place again, and I throw it and nothing happens. Or if I throw it and the lights start blinking off and on, then I know it's working.
But what if it's not hydrophobic?
That makes it difficult. So I did a show the other night on a psychic. Did I tell you about this show? Where she told me about pictures falling off the wall and stuff.
Yes, you did tell me about that.
Yeah, that now, ladies and gentlemen, that kind of flipped me out a little bit. And I was like, she got my attention. Ow, that hurt my neck doing that. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking to myself, you got my attention because nobody knows about pictures being moved or pictures falling off the walls. And she said, it was my grandfather. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, he's always been a prankster. And I was like, I just leave them off the wall now. I don't even hang them back up because I'm in the process of moving to backwoods, Kentucky. And then she told me I'm going to do taps. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to learn how to tap dance. And she kept saying, no, taps. I'm like, no, taps. And she said, no, taps. Down at the lake, outside the porch, 6 o'clock every night when you were there, you would play taps on your trumpet and would echo for miles. Man, I about dropped dead in my seat. She said, your grandfather loved it because he always wanted me to grow up playing the bugle or trumpet because he played it, I guess, in the service or something or whatever. Because he was in the Marines and Air Force, and in the Air Force, I think his rank was Lieutenant Major or Lieutenant Colonel or something. It's on his headstone. And he flew planes and so forth. And so.
Is he buried at Arlington?
No, he's actually buried off Barstown Road.
Don't know where that is, but.
So, yeah. Yeah, he lied on his application to join the Marines. So when he got out of the Air Force, he joined the police force with his brother that flew the helicopter for county, and he was working on city. So he retired from the city, Louisville, which is Louisville Metro now. Back then it was Louisville or Louisville, however you want to say it, but yeah. But anyways, that really caught my attention. It's like, dealing with real psychics and stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such an amazing experience because, real psychic usually don't ask you any questions, I found out.
Gotta say, I haven't had any break the threshold with me and tell me something.
See, I have. And it's like that one that's supposed to get back with you. They must have found something that they are scared of talking about.
I don't know. It'd be nice to know, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so far, no psychic has knocked my socks off. And
we're going to change that. We're going to break some on the show.
Well, I'm game because, you just never know.
Man, I have Jimmy Blanton on there from Tales of Terror. And they looked at him like, oh, no, you need to go to the doctor. You got heart conditions, you got plaque building up, and you got some kind of blah, 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 blah. I mean, they are not even medical doctors. And I can see Jimmy's face just getting like really big and his face turned red. They're like, honey, you need to lose some weight and you need to do this and that. And the first thing I said, we all need to lose weight. Okay, come on.
Bingo.
Right. But if you look at him on camera, you couldn't tell he was heavy because from the shoulders up, he looks skinny. He really does. He looks like you. So, and he turned around and he's like,
did you just call me fat? Huh.
Oh, Lord. And he turned around and he said, ma'am, you hit everything right on the head. And I about fell out. He says, I do have a heart condition. And yes, I'm aware of the other issues, but I'm not aware of that issue. I'm going to go to the doctors and get it checked out. And he did. And he's like, Grizzly, she was right. I was like, oh.
I ask about side pain and there's crickets. So I don't know. Maybe there's nothing wrong with my side.
I don't know. Last time I went to one, they said I was bad. Crazy. That's one thing I need. I need to record a beat button.
Yeah, because there's probably going to be times where I'm going to say something and you need to dump it. So I don't know. Do you have a delay on your end?
Can't say something. We're live.
Well, you could be live and still have a dump button. Do you don't have a dump button? Oh, you might need a dump button with me. Because Lord knows I might say something stupid.
Ooh. So, anyway, I got some things recorded.
This little biggie there.
That's right. Gotta have a little biggie.
Hell yeah.
And I watched you smack me for that one.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think I played long enough, did I?
I don't know. I tried to remain quiet so the YouTube police could get you. So.
You are such a friend.
That's what I do. That's what I do. So I've noticed a new feature on, I don't know if it's on my mic program or if it's on Windows, but it now captions what we're saying.
Yeah, and that is a feature that you can turn on, and you can actually turn on in your YouTube program too, to where if you talk a different language, or if you are not so nice with language, it actually removes the language from the video and leaves a big line in your conversation. And the only reason I know about it is because I was trying to get this UK people to come to my show. And after watching them for 2 minutes longer, I was like, there's no way they're coming on my show. I mean, they were effing this. And I mean, back to back. And I was watching the subtitles. It was like line, but line. I mean, it was just nonstop. And then they got ornery. And I was like, Jets. I'm like, do you not understand you're live on the air? So I don't know how they have it set up to where Facebook doesn't ban them, or they're on YouTube only. But I mean, they were quite hysterical with their accents and stuff. You got me laughing about it.
Yeah. Google has you have a private chat there. Google has a button where you can turn it on and off. So, but it will actually, Google, instead of talking, it will actually play the beep noise. So,
what?
It will. I have a funny story about Google.
I don't see no private chat.
Well, maybe it's just to me. He says he has been backstage and he is ready.
Oh, let's bring him on.
All right. Who are we bringing on? Sorry, Ted, I don't know you.
Hold up. I got to bring his music on.
Well, who is Ted?
Ted is the gentleman that was supposed to be on the show today.
Oh, well, hello, Ted. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, we have our special guest backstage now. We're going to play his song.
He gets a song, but I don't.
You did get a song, didn't you hear it?
I'm kind of offended by this.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm going to pick my own song. It's going to be Baby Shark.
It's got to be make sure it doesn't have any, you know.
I got the perfect one. And I've already got a permission from the artiste.
Yeah, you got to have them put you on. Yeah. But if you get noticed on YouTube, you can put their information on the explanation and phone number.
He hasn't struck a record dealer contract yet.
Oh, Lord.
That's cool music.
Yes, Mr. Ted. Welcome to the show. There he is.
Hi, Ted.
Hi,
I'm not Ted.
Good to see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Lexington, Kentucky, from coast to coast and around the world, we say hello to Ted. Ted was supposed to be on here earlier, but I made a goof up somehow. So I didn't check my emails. I do apologize about that, sir.
Oh,
so how are you doing?
Right. It's quite all right. How are you? Can you hear me?
Doing good. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the delays and the
actually, it's my fault. I'll take credit for that. So why don't you tell everybody about yourself? This is Glenn. We're going to be having our own show too.
Well, hi. Hello to you and your listeners. My name is Ted Rowe. I'm been involved in the UFO research field for about 30 years.
Wow.
I've spent the last 20 years working. I am the executive director of the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, which is NARCAP. .org. I'm now also a founder and steering committee member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics UAP research program, and I've set up a UAP program to inform mental health and medical practitioners, professionals on UAP developments so that they can stop mistreating clients and start acting like people are dealing with a real phenomenon. Those are my three primary thrusts right now, but I have a lot of other oddball stuff going on.
All right. That's a lot of big titles. Wow, I'm very impressed. I was very impressed when we met. You know, I mean, the first time we talked, we must have talked for hours?
Yeah, it was probably about 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I was so impressed, and ladies and gentlemen, it takes a lot to impress Grizzly. I can tell you that, and I can tell you many times my mouth was wide open and dropped. So, so what do you believe in UFOs? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I come to this study honestly with direct experience. I've had direct exposures to UAP, and I've been close to them, and so it was never a matter of belief. It was a matter of dealing with trauma and trying to be helpful in the subject. I kind of lucked out. I reported one of my experiences to Ames Research Center, to the PR office there, and Dr. Richard Haynes got back to me. Any of you that are in ufology probably know who Dr. Haynes is. And after a few months, he invited me to help him set up a reporting center for pilots and air traffic controllers to report their UAP incidents. And we began documenting it. I was his executive director and basically ran his program for, the last 22 years.
Wow.
We work primarily with pilots and aviation safety issues. We don't just do pilot reports. We're concerned about it when there's safety factors involved. And so we've been documenting those for quite a while. And then when the Office of the Director of National Intelligence came out with his report in June of 2021, they cited three. They said that UAP are real, and then they cited three issues with them: national security, aviation safety, and a stigma that inhibits research. And then about a week later, I got a call from the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics asking me to present some of our findings to their membership. The AIAA is a professional society of aeronautical scientists and engineers, about 30,000 members. NASA people, Lockheed, defense contractors, everybody who's anybody in that field belongs to AIAA. And so I presented to their membership in July of 2021, and then in September they invited us back to several of us. There was 5 total to set up do a program design phase for a new program for them for AIAA, and then they invited us to run it. In November here a couple of weeks ago, the leadership of AIAA voted us to become an integration and outreach committee, an official committee in their organization. So that's about as mainstream as you can go, really, in this subject on the science side. So it's an important development, and it's going to lead where we need it to go. I think we started our implementation in August. Took us about a year to design the program, and we started our implementation in August, and we've been onboarding the right kind of people of every profession. We've got attorneys, we've got science, we've got communications, and all kinds of folks. So project managers, lots of them. So we're bringing on the staff that we need to be able to do the job, and we're robust enough to be able to stand up with the DoD program, with NASA, FAA. So it's really kind of an arrival. While it isn't a direct derivative of our work at NARCAP, it is literally the next step of what we would do if somebody dumped a bunch of money on my program. So so the aviation safety issue continues. They've adopted our terminology, which is UAP. When Dr. Haynes and I founded NARCAP in 2000, nobody was using that term. It was just a common phrase, lowercase, unidentified aerial phenomena. But we gave it a definition and made it a proper noun. So capital UAP is something that came about because of our work. And now, of course, it's viral and nobody knows what it means or where it's from. It's kind of decayed the way the term UFO did. Originally, UFO was the last thing you called it after all the work that you did to try and resolve it, giving all the information you could possibly use and putting it in front of people who were qualified to make an analysis. And then if you couldn't identify it, it was a UFO, which is same that's true for UAP. It's the last thing you call it, not the first. There was a lot of problems with that, and to this day, people don't understand that. They throw the terms around like they know what they mean, and they're not quite right, but that's okay. So recently,
I just went blank. I mean, you just blew me out of the water again.
Well, recently in October, middle of October, I responded to an invitation by the French government. Their space agency has a UAP team, been studying them since the 70s. And they had a conference, and I was invited to present at that, and got to learn a lot more about the international side of the subject in the official zones. So it's all been terribly interesting to go from being the guy that sees them to the guy that's trying to help the process move forward. So
that's incredible. I mean, it just blows my mind. It really does. When somebody says UAP, I mean, what's your first thoughts? What first comes across your mind?
Well, more questions. That if you say it, then I have to follow up and say, okay, you're talking about UAP. Why do you think it's a UAP? Do you have any evidence to support your case? Anecdote is evidence. People have a story to tell. That's evidence. It can be evidence of various things, but it can also be evidence of a real situation. But it's the lowest form of level of evidence, and then you're looking for instruments like photographs or recordings or sensor data or other things to support the claim. But at this point, I think we're a little bit beyond collecting cases. Now we're trying to understand them, and which kind of takes the whole conversation to another level. we've established that they're out there, and now we have to go out and figure out how to look at them and how to collect data on them and how to understand what they are and what they're about. So it's basically start all over again, and build science a step at a time. Proper observation, proper tools, proper documentation and presentation, following standards of research and publication that science would use. So we're in that phase now.
Do you think, in your opinion, that a lot of people misidentify UAPs, and it could be our own that we built?
Oh, definitely. I don't know if that's always the explanation, but the great majority of reports I get involve mundane things that are explainable. One moment, I have to clear my throat here, just a second.
Remember when the stealth fighter had to do that emergency landing? I forgot where. People were freaking out because they saw something they never identified with. They didn't know about the S2 spy plane and the SR-71, and they kept all that a secret for a long time.
Well, if you've ever been around an SR-71 when it's taking off or landing, there's no secret there. I grew up in Great Falls, Montana, and lived 10 miles from Malmstrom Air Force Base, and when one of those things fired up, you heard it. There was no mystery to it. It wasn't like the things I've seen that are probably as big as that and less than their own length from me and not making a sound.
Wow.
It's a whole different situation. They don't tend to make a lot of noise, if they make noise at all. They don't give off a lot of energy in any way other than light. You don't see, a car runs, right? It vibrates, it gives off heat and sound, and vibration, energy's moving through it. These things are much more efficient. They don't do that. So these are part of the things that you learn, about them, so that you can identify real from misidentification. And pilots make mistakes just like everybody else does. When if it's at a distance or it's just a light, it's difficult to make a call about it. But then there's a percentage of them that have close encounters, and then they have something to describe, and now you've got something to work with. And of course, they're subject to all the illusions and delusions that people suffer, and some of them aren't well and will tell stories just like everybody else does, but some don't. And I have military reporters, and these guys are straight arrows. And when they want to talk about things, they pretty much have a clear description of what they saw, and it's no nonsense. And it tends to be right in the middle of what's commonly reported. Not a lot of deviation from that. So.
I've always been fascinated by the topic, especially since I was a young one, because, I saw a lot of stuff myself and Bobby could never explain on his farm, out in the country. And we're talking back in the 80s,
yep.
And it was really weird because we would see things, but we could not hear them. And we just thought it was government, aircrafts or the silent helicopters, which I don't even know, do we have silent helicopters or not? So,
no.
Yeah, saying that's what. Okay, somebody's knocking on the wall. I'm gonna blame them as the neighbor hanging pictures again. But it really makes me wonder, because if you look from the 30s, 40s, and 50s at the technology that has jumped, from the first calculator took up a whole government floor, and to our cell phones that are in the palm of our hands, the technology leap is so drastic. It's hard to fathom. And people that are older than me knows what I'm talking about. The younger generation to me don't, because I grew up with nothing. When I was a kid, we played out in the dirt. We only had 4 channels of TV. We didn't have cable until later. And I had that black and white video game Pong. And boy, was I the kid of the neighborhood when I had that. And we played with that dang thing for hours and hours. And my mom and dad didn't care because, like I said, and I tell you what, when MTV came on, when they got cable, my house was a rocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
My parents loved that.
When I was growing up, phones were in the wall.
Yeah.
Just everything was different. Captain Kirk would love to have what we carry around every day. He's got his little flip walkie-talkie, right? Look at what we have. We have the sum total of human knowledge in our hands at any point. It's just a whole different world.
I don't know what I'd do without it now.
Yeah, well, yeah, I use it for everything. It's pretty much my assistant. But
you're right. It's like the other night I was watching TV because unfortunately I couldn't sleep, and the cable went out. I was like, what am I gonna do? I was like, back up. My mom and dad gave me a digital antenna for my TV so I can watch regular TV, and that was kind of unique for a while, And I called the cable company, and they're like, "Oh, we're just doing maintenance," and I was like, "No, you're not. You got a mass outage." So I kept checking back and forth on cable, and lo and behold, here's a message from Lexington County's urban government that they have a mass outage for some reason to do with weather. I was like, why couldn't a guy just tell the truth? Maintenance, come on.
Oh yeah.
But what do you expect, or what reasoning do you think from the technology jump? Can we relate that anything to the aliens or UAPs?
Well, there's been some attempts to tie some technical developments together. I think the transistor was one of these things that people have kind of argued could be alien inspired. If you look at Corso's book, Day After Roswell, he unequivocally explains how they sent crash retrieval materials around to government contractors to back up various R&D projects like night vision and some of the others. I did a deep dive on night vision to try and understand his claims, and I couldn't find anything to dispute it. It was exactly the way he said it went down, right to the point of the guy that made the decision over choosing the alien-inspired hardware against the Signal Corps inspired hardware, because there was a competition between Army R&D and the Signal Corps. And that person that made that decision was Dr. Luis Alvarez, and he is rumored to have been involved with a lot of crash retrieval situations. So kind of an ideal guy to put on the center post there to make a call. And that stuff saved a lot of lives in Vietnam, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Night vision. And this is all, so, I'm on the fence with it, but I don't dismiss it at all. We may find out here, the National Defense Authorization Act just was approved in the Senate this morning. And
really?
And it has wording in it to protect UAP whistleblowers stepping up from the intelligence community.
Oh, that's impressive.
So we might find out about Roswell in a year, coming up. We could have.
I know when it happened. I know it's a cover up.
Well, and we can know it, but you can suspect it, but confirmation is what we're looking for, right? So the chances are that this could be confirmed, in the coming year, along with a lot of other suspicions we've had.
Do you think the people are ready for it?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. Glenn, what do you think? I don't think they're ready for it.
No, they're not ready for it. And I'm a believer, huh?
Something wrong with your mic. It's like you're talking, it's mumbling.
Well, I turned it off, so I don't know. Now it's back on. So
Yeah, that's better.
okay.
Yeah, it's better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think the American people's ready.
No, they're not ready. And I have I don't know, a feeling that Christianity won't be able to handle it as well. So that's the reason I feel like that a lot of it's been covered up. So besides for the fact that the government likes to keep tech for themselves, so they can.
Oh yeah, they're so far advanced from us, aren't they, Ted?
Probably well, if there's a they involved with this, and I say that I'm agnostic in the perspective of being in the public on the subject. I've seen the damn things. I've got my own strong opinions, but just to be agnostic about it, if there's a they behind this, we are not their peers. We are not even close. And their tech is hands down. It's just harmonics above anything we've thought about. And I don't think that's sociologically speaking we can handle it. And on top of it, I don't think if there's a they involved that they're good guys. I don't think this was a good situation. And frankly, I don't think everybody needs to know about this. I think what's really important is that people be human beings and live their lives and focus on being humans and stop worrying about them and making sure that we aren't influenced unduly by agendas that aren't our own.
Absolutely.
We need to stand on our own feet and find our own tech and learn how to do this ourselves. They need to leave us alone. The problem with all of this is that they don't respect boundaries.
Nope.
Geopolitical boundaries, personal boundaries, psychological boundaries. They're influencing our children. They get involved with our kids. Okay, you don't let anybody get involved with your kids, right? Other than maybe your pastor, right? Or your church or your teachers. Other than that, you have a very narrow line about who gets to be around your children. And these guys, according to the stories, are coming in the night and taking our children, indoctrinating them. People can't seem to make a decision about that it's bad. Every time I bring it up, well, hey, don't you think maybe this isn't a good situation? And I hear, oh, well, there's good aliens and there's bad aliens. And then it stops right there. There's no idea of, hey, well, which ones do you think are misbehaving here and how the hell do we do something about it? They don't
I said the same thing about Sasquatch and Dogman. I hear the same story. So
yeah. It's like, okay, now you're being intimidated, and what are you going to do about it? I think on one hand, Sasquatch is a little different. I think you're dealing with something that's a lot closer to human. Display behaviors, warnings, warding off. People rarely are hurt, but there's big displays that are involved. This kind of thing. And in that sense, it's almost more about dealing with nature than it is dealing with something that's quite divorced from nature and has been for who knows how many millions of years. So I it's a different kind of problem, in my opinion. I think you get the same agnostic. I'm not going to make any, what are you going to do, kind of thing, or they embrace it without thought. And I have to wonder if they're so good at all the other stuff that they do, how good do you think they are at surveillance and social engineering? How do you know that what you're talking to on your social media is what it portrays itself to be? And, these ideas that come through and the counter ideas and the left and the right and the arguments down to a dead stop on everything that is important in this and that requires an actual decision to be made. People refuse to make that last call. They'll do all the math up to a certain point, but then they won't make a decision. They won't come down on a firm position and set their minds accordingly. And that's a real problem for us, I think, as humans. If we can't even make a decision that something coming in the night and laying hands on us is bad. What's our hope really for anything else? And what's their agenda?
And you made a valid
Better
point,
question.
because some of the stories that I hear from people that I interview is, oh, they take me up to the ship, they took me to their planet, and they were so nice and treated me so well. And I'm thinking, okay, so they took you, put you on their ship, and they transport you to another galaxy, and they treated you so well that you remember, but do you actually know what happened?
Screen memory.
Well, that's just it. The free study. Are you familiar with that? Renario did that. It basically interviewed a whole lot of experiencers and came down with a big happy note about how 80% of them had good things to say about what happened, 20% didn't. And so I said, so let's talk about that 20% for a minute. And I got labeled, negative, and
Shocking.
but my point was that, let's talk about anesthesia. How many people are awake under anesthesia? How many people does anesthesia not quite work for? I mean, I remember getting surgery and listening to the doctors talking around me, and they told me later I woke up 3 times on the table. So the perhaps what's being done isn't screening the memories for some of us. It doesn't work. Or some of us, they don't bother. And so now you have these mixed messages, which is what they like, I think, because it divides us, keeps the herd calm and focused on each other rather than on them. And so there's if you're looking at social engineering and you're looking at intelligence type operations, there's every argument to be aware of it, that to consider it and to look closely for it. Folks really want to just hand the world over to somebody else, and that's not the way we move. That's not the way we progress as a race. You don't just say, okay, we'll give it to the aliens. I'd rather the aliens run things. We've paid for every step we've made in blood. Every bit of our history, we paid for it. We own it. It's ours. Our future is ours. And there's if they aren't going to even talk to us, then it's really hard to be positive or supportive to them.
What about all the stories that we hear that the aliens are working with the government hand in hand like friends?
Yeah, I don't know. There is a thread in the history of all this that suggests that. If so, it's at a very low level, and they keep it pretty mum, pretty low key. But I haven't seen anything in the world that tells me anything that they've done anything beneficial. I mean, all you hear is people being taken, and we've referred to it as an abduction, which is not a positive phrase to begin with, but it's accurate. And but I can't point to a hillside that's been reforested by aliens. I can't come up with anything that I can say, oh, hey, the aliens are helping us. Where's the benefit? What is beneficial about our interaction with these things, and compared with what do they expect to get out of what they're doing around us? It's none of this is resolved, and there are plenty of reasons to ask questions. And like I said, we might hear from the intelligence community a bit over the next year or two on this subject. We're waiting for the second ODNI report, which they've held back on. And I mean, if I was writing the second ODNI report, how hard would that be to write? Because the first one admits they exist. Are you just going to admit they exist again? Or are you going to talk about the next level? And what is the next level? And how do you put that out there? Or do you lie? And I think they're probably slugging it out, trying to figure out how to stop this all right now, because they don't have an ability to slow it down if they go any further. You know, we're right on the brink. They will not be able to put this genie back in the bottle if they don't do it in the next 6 months. You know, if they don't just shut it all down, you know.
See, like I was telling Glenn on it was one of our shows that we were together on, and like I was telling some other people I was interviewing, you know, for the past, say, year or less, you know, the government has been releasing footage of supposed to be UAPs flying, going into water, so forth. And it's like, what are they prepping us for?
Well, it's really, they're not even prepping us. What's happened is that Congress got wind that the DOD knew things about these things, and then they percolated out into the public domain, I think, through some unauthorized releases, and then they released a couple of things. And I think, let's see, that they had the night vision of the triangle flying over the ship. Looks like a bokeh to me. I'm not so certain that that's anything anomalous. But then they had the USS Russell had the spear hovering out over the water, and as they watched it, it went into the water. That one is likely authentic in my mind. I haven't had a chance to really look at it, but if I was choosing which of the two I would put resources on, I'd go for the spear over the water. There was an analysis done by Dr. Canute at UAPX of one of these movements that the military had captured. It was based on military data. And the thing had gone from 28,000 feet to 50 feet in less than 0.7 of a second, and stopped it, dead stop. And there were a lot of questions around that, you know, kinetic energy and other issues related to it that raised more questions than answers, but certainly demonstrated the daunting nature of the technology that is involved. And that would have to be technology it stopped, you know. Those things look interesting to me. The things that don't are the things that were presented in the hearing recently. Those videos don't look right. A lot of the photos that they put out are easily explained as mundane. They're not in the common description of what is being reported out there. There are threads of commonality through UAP reports, shapes like discs, spheres, cylinders, triangles, parallelograms, right? Where are those in the military data? Where's the close photographs of these objects? Where's the clear and unambiguous data that we're all pretty sure they have? And so far, they haven't put that out in front of us yet. And as a researcher, I'm waiting, because I know what pilots see. I've been listening to them for 2 decades. I have pilot reports going back to 1916. I have over 100 years of pilot reports. And the UAP reports are what they describe are consistent throughout, even though their airplanes are changing. You know, they started with no instrumentation. These were biplanes, right? Made out of plywood and paper and wire and lawnmower engines, you know, and you know, and now, so there wasn't any instrumentation, there were observations. And then over for 40 or 50 years of that before we got real instruments in airplanes, and then we started putting in sensor packs and stuff. And in 2014, they changed the sensor packs on the F-18s, and all of a sudden they started seeing things that they didn't expect to, that they hadn't been seeing before, things that are not visible to the human eye. And that raised a lot of questions. So we're waiting for some of that data. We'd really like to see some of that. All of it seems to happen in the same general, well, the reports that we're aware of happen in one area, but the observations as described by the pilots happen more than in those areas. but the stories we heard, like Ryan Graves' story, happened in a particular training area out off the East Coast, and they see him there to this day, which means it's a semi-permanent presence. And where else across the country are these things? Are these things ubiquitous? Are they stacked up over cities everywhere? Because when you think about UFO reports, people report them everywhere they are. We've got reports from New Guinea. I'm in Alaska right now. I have a place out near Big Lake, a lot that I'm going to develop. And so I'm talking to some folks about that, and they're like, oh yeah, we saw a UFO over there the other day. So it's like everywhere, wherever you go, at least the stories are there. So it's ubiquitous in the social dialogue, but something stimulating those comments, right? They're coming from seeing something, at least for some percentage of them. And it just tells you it's everywhere.
Glenn, you got any questions?
No, well, you said that you've been up close to one. So can you tell us about that, or is that top secret?
Well, it's interesting. For 20 years, I couldn't talk about it at all. I was working with Dr. Haynes and Dr. Vallée, Jacques Vallée, Dr. Heisch, Dr. Jim McCampbell, and a whole bunch of NASA current and former engineers and other folks were in our NARCAP program. We had about 60, and I couldn't talk about it. I had the reputation of my organization to protect and the people involved. So I couldn't tell them, hey, I've seen these things and I've been a little closer than a lot of folks. But it was the reason I put up with all the crap for 20 years, to do it. And then when I was invited to present at AIAA, I stuck my neck out a little bit and told them a little bit about one observation I had, just the technical information. And it was very well received, which is new, because the idea that you would stand there and say we should research these things because you've seen it, never flew. That never was influential. In fact, it was a way to get your credibility destroyed. And now I'm in a position where I can actually talk a little bit about what I've seen and share technical info with people that want that info, and can do something with it. And so it's a whole different world. But so for me, my experiences started when I was a kid. I'm 62 now. I was 5 when it started, that I remember. I think there was 1 or 2 before that the family tells me about. But the one I remember, I was 5. We had a flying saucer just come up in front of the family car while we were driving down the road towards Lincoln, Montana, from Cadott. And that's the first one I really remember. It was just a big silver disc right in front of the car as we were driving down the road, terrifying my family. And I had several more. And as a kid, then I had a pretty bad one when I was 18. And then really nothing more as far as things I saw for about 15 years. Really nothing that I could point a finger at and say, well, that's those guys. And then in 1998 and 99, I had 4 really close observations of devices that came right up to me, spheres and this kind of thing, and culminating in a cylinder, probably 40, 50 feet long, that stalked me across the city of Oakland. I was riding with 2 friends in our car and heading southbound on 880 towards off the Bay Bridge interchange, heading towards Oakland. And we saw something out over Oakland. It was a little light, a yellow light over a white light. It was a good ways off, and really I don't know why I saw it, because there was no reason for me to even notice it. But I kind of leaned around Susan and I said, "No, that's unusual." She was driving, and we watched this thing go down the Highway 24 interchange as we made a curve towards the Oakland Army base, which is near the estuary, near the water. There's cranes there and stuff. And then as the freeway starts to raise up on pylons. It's about, I don't know, 50, 60 feet off the ground. And so as we came around, the front end of the car came up as we were, going up this little grade, and it put this thing square in our windscreen where we were looking at it. It was about a mile away exactly, because I looked it over on Google Maps. And as I'm looking at it, it's a long yellow rectangle with 2 white lights under it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, am I seeing silhouettes? Am I seeing? What am I seeing? And as I'm looking at it, it just goes whack and stops right in front of the car. It did it faster than my hand moved there. That movement, it's faster than that. It was faster than I could blink an eye. It moved so fast that twice in the process, it came to a dead stop because my eyes couldn't process it. Whack, whack, whack. But it did it all and stopped right in front of the car, less than its own length from the windshield. And about 10, 12 feet off the ground with these big lights blasting onto the road. And then immediately matched our speed, moving backwards, broadside, right down the middle of the freeway. There wasn't anybody around us at the time. There weren't a lot of cars. It was before the traffic rush. It was about 4:15 in the afternoon. And the 5 o'clock rush hadn't stacked up yet. And Silicon Valley had gone through one of its collapses. So there was a lot less traffic on the freeway than normal for that time. And then the thing matched, like I said, it matched our speed down the road. And we had a pretty good look at it all. You could see there was a deck, and you could see a void under the deck. You could see the entire interior of the thing and the crew, and it matched our speed down the road. And as we got to the 24 overpass that comes down onto 880, it topped over the overpass and met us on the other side, above the street signs that are 40, 50 feet off the ground, the big wide green street signs. The whole incident, we covered about 4.5 miles. We were doing 55, right? So that's 55 seconds per mile, or 60 seconds per mile about. And it took, from the time the thing got to the front of our car until we got in front of the Oakland police station, was about 60, 70 seconds. And when we checked the clock, we had picked up 3 hours and 9 minutes while we were driving. And I think I have an understanding of what that's about, but it involves general relativity and higher physics. And but the whole thing was really shocking to me. I lived on a sailboat where when I get up in the morning, I'd look out and I could see that whole stretch of freeway right in front of me, in Alameda Marina. And it was just miserable. I was really, really sick, and I was really terrified. There's nowhere you can go to get away from these things if they take an interest in you. There's no. I'm speaking as somebody with exposures now, not as somebody with his AIAA hat on. Being human to human here, and just telling you that these things, they have a capacity to be around you, and they're not imagination. They're not confabulation. They're not things that people make up, although they can do all of those things and have. Some of us are not making it up. And I would not have gone through the last 22 years of bullshit, pardon the phrase, on a lie. And I didn't even tell my story until it was okay to talk, because I did not want to kill the opportunity to speak. I had to wait until the time was right, and I just stuck to those standards, and now I'm in a place where I can tell that story. There's other stories that I have, and I'm my hope is that people who can do the most with it in terms of academics and engineers and scientists take an interest in it over just sitting here with a flashlight under my chin telling a alien story. And the thing I have confidence in is, whether my story is told or not, the reality of this stands. And if I drop dead this afternoon, we're still going to move forward, and eventually all this is going to come out. And we're going to find out that some of us were telling the truth. So I have confidence either way. And in knowing that, I've focused a lot more on just doing the work, understanding what it takes to bring the right people together in the right way at the right time to say and do the right things that will trigger action, research and engagement on the subject. So that's been my hope. Now we're kind of at a spot where we can sort of consider it. They don't just shut us down entirely.
Sometimes you need that groundbreaker to tell the story. That's the thing.
Yeah, somebody has to go first.
Yeah, when somebody goes first, that's when I've seen that in other, I'll call them paranormal, but there's really the Bigfoot community.
Yeah.
Person came out and started speaking about things, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, boom! Oh, if he can talk about it, so can I. So,
social sanction, I call that. When society says it's okay to talk about these things, then they talk about it. Society wouldn't talk about gay people for the longest time, right? Other than morals charges, nobody would talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Until somebody stood up and said, "Hey, I'm one of those people," and I'm here to tell you about what it's like to be me, and you guys need to change how you treat us, and fair enough, but nobody talked about it for the longest time. And there's a lot of things they don't talk about. But on the UFO topic, I had last spring, and I've told this story once or twice to others, but last spring, I got a phone call one morning, and it was an elderly woman, 73, 74 years old, whispering into the telephone, my husband's gone and I really need to talk to you. And I said, well, I'm here. How can I help you now? I just need somebody to hear this story. I said, well, I'm the right guy. And so she tells me this story about back in 1973 about how her husband worked nights and she took care of her little kids. And she woke up half naked under a disc in her backyard, and spent the next number of years tying herself to her kids' beds at night because she was terrified and her husband was gone. And her family just ridiculed her to no end on that for years and years and years, right up to the present day. They made fun of her. And she had carried that load and that terror and that trauma and that lack of respect for all of that time. And right in the middle of her talking to me, he's coming home, and she hung up. And that's the last I heard from her.
Wow.
It's a load, and it was heavy for me. I wasn't well. I wasn't an okay person to begin with, and then to have this dumped in my lap and realize something needed to be done was hard, and it's been hard all along. And so I have empathy for everybody that's dealing with it. I have empathy for the mentally ill people that use UFO stories to mask realities that they can't talk about that aren't UFO related, because there's a lot of mental illness around this subject. But there's a percentage of us that are telling you exactly what we know, what's happened to it. The things I've seen, the experiences I've had didn't happen in my head. They happened in reality. I didn't hear a voice in my head talking to me. I saw them. I was with people that saw it. Everybody, a lot of the skeptics like to think they have explanations for everything, but I have no patience for being gaslighted. I know what I saw and what I experienced, and I know it's important, and I know I'm not alone. So just try to walk a line that has some hope of getting somewhere. Try not to say things I shouldn't say or behave in ways that are going to hurt my credibility, and try and move it all forward. That's the best you can do, and it's working. So
yeah, it sure has. I can say that. But have you all know, both of you, about the cloaking technology that's come forward that the military is using?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it, Glenn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is some wild stuff.
Well,
now,
it's pretty good.
I want to know where did that come from?
Well, whatever it is, it's pretty good, but it's not as good as not as good as the other team does it. Because I've seen it, and that's impressive. Okay, that is really impressive because they can do it with the whole device, and it's not some little shield of plastic with light properties to it. You know, they're literally making themselves not visible, and they change the refraction index on the surface of the device or whatever the hell it is they do. But it's seamless. Okay, it's Romulan, you know, for lack of a better description. The only thing that comes close is what you've seen on sci-fi TV.
When I saw it, looked like it went in between two pieces of paper.
Yeah, that's a good way. The one I saw, it looked like there was overcast behind it, and it wrapped the overcast around it. It was just like all of a sudden it was part of the overcast, and you couldn't make it out. It was gone. You know, the only reason I could tell it was there at all was because there was external lighting on the device, and they didn't turn it off, so I could see the external lights moving, even though the thing was. It was almost like you were looking through it. You know. So, yeah, they're very good at what they do.
That's wild.
We stand to learn a lot. You know.
Yes, we do. Or the opposite end, be enslaved.
Yeah, it's a fair concern. This galaxy we live in, the Milky Way galaxy, it's been able to support life for 5 billion years. So what makes you think that we aren't living in well-established real estate right now? And our vision of going out in an unexplored galaxy and sailing forth to the stars. Hey, maybe somebody owns those stars. Yeah. You know, yeah, maybe our idea of you know, freedom and exploration is about to be abbreviated. You know, it's a complex situation, and if you're going to accept that there's non-human intelligences operating in our domain, then there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of questions to be answered. But my take on it at all is if there's a they, you know, and I'm not crazy, and all this stuff I just talked about is real. If there's a they, they're not talking to us. Okay, they're not communicating, and we aren't. And what we're hearing from people that claim to have a message from them is stuff that we knew about forever. I remember in the 1970s, they told us that global warming was an issue, you know, and that we needed to change the way we did things, or our environment was going to suffer for it. The ecology movement, right? Ecology green with the little ecology symbols, you know, all that stuff. That was all. I mean, we knew about that then, and yet here come the abductees, and that's their message. Oh, we need to change, or there's going to be a catastrophe. Well, we already know that. We knew it then. They're not telling us anything, and they're not helping us with it. So, you know, what do you infer from that? What do you pull from that? When I did a study of pilot cases, I was looking at comparing the UAP behaviors around military aircraft with behaviors around commercial and civil aircraft. And the interactions around military aircraft are much more dynamic. Multiple passes, behavior that could be considered intimidating, or display behavior, this kind of thing. And never mind the fact that, you know, we don't have anything at this point that can do much about them, although I have some hope for these laser systems we've got now that are they're mounting lasers on all of our fighter aircraft now. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but the HEL systems are going live on. It's already been mandated, so most fighter aircraft are going to be upgraded to be able to have laser weapon capacity. And these things can acquire and destroy a target in less than a second. So, and it's just exactly what you'd expect it to be. It's a beam of light blasting out of a lens. It's not. There's
Here comes Independence Day, you all.
Yeah, well, you know, moving up.
That's wild.
And but other than that, I don't really think we've got anything that can slow them down. These things are, from what I've seen of these things, they're, like I said, harmonics above our science and our physics. we've got some work.
See, when he talks about this, Glenn, it reminds me of Ronald Reagan. I never forget that when I was a kid. Talk about outside threats in the world, that all of us would unite if there was a threat to us all.
Well, if you recall, we all did unite for a short period of time, and then there was quite a bit of discussion inside some rooms that all those weapons, we weren't really pointing at each other, we were pointing up. And if you recall, Reagan was pretty much the one that got that going. So
Star Wars.
Yep. I don't know the truth of it all, but I think the deaths of 22 scientists related to it from bizarre suicides is kind of strange.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know. In the end, I don't know. And that's the thing that's been my saving grace in all of this is I can differentiate between what I think my exposures and experiences were and what they're about, and what we're actually trying to do to get information about these. I can do both. Not many can. Not many can. And it's a terrific load. I mean, I have general anxiety disorder. I'm stressed all the time. I've had to really learn how to live in my own skin while dealing with something that I can't get any help for. You know, I'm traumatized by this stuff, and I had to train myself to deal with my trauma, and I've been fairly successful at it. But I spent a lot of time in hell to get to a point where I can actually function on all levels, well enough to address CNES, well enough to engage AIAA, this kind of thing. So
parapsychology is not even, it's not even on the spectrum yet. So
no.
It's still a stigma. I think that's correct. So,
well, I just stood up a program, UAP Medical Coalition. We're about 6 months in right now. I've got a team of about a dozen working on it, and its purpose is to inform the mental health and medical community of professionals about UAP and UAP issues, specifically to help. And I had to wait until this spring to even start it because the dialogue hadn't matured enough to be able to bring that conversation to other parts of academia. I was confident that science and engineering would take an interest in it as far as mechanical or physical sciences go, but the softer sciences of psychology and psychiatry and medical science are way behind the conversation. And we just started. We brought in a human factors team on our work at AIAA, and we're starting to snowball with the UAP Medical Coalition idea. We're starting to attract the kind of attention we're looking for in the psychology community. But we're just at the beginning of it. And the whole point is to just offer up all of it and have them look at it and remind them that we have physical evidence that these things exist. And perhaps the stories people are telling about them are real. And perhaps you guys need to get together and debate all of this until you write in your own journals, publish in your own journals about it, and then come up with some modus operandi for helping people. That probably just reapplying trauma therapy, but understanding that people actually have these experiences. They're not confabulated sometimes. Sometimes they're telling you exactly what happened, and it happened the way they said it did. And if I've had the exposures I've had, there are others who've had more and worse. I'm sure of it.
Sure.
So, that's the whole idea, is to start bringing our thinkers around to the idea that it's okay to think about this. And that's the third point that the ODNI raised, was stigma that was inhibiting research, inhibiting engagement, stopping us from thinking about it. And that needs to change. So here we are trying to get it changed. And so I nobody else was doing it, so I did it. I picked up the ball, walked forward with it, just like with UAP and aviation safety. I mean, if I had our group was ignored, except for our UAP term. Our group was pretty much ignored for 20 years. we didn't have a lot of influence. We did what we could. It was a small data collection and advocacy program. And now we're, and then in 2018, Senator Warner walks down the steps of the Capitol fresh from a briefing by the Navy and starts talking about UAP and aviation safety. And I sat up and said, huh, I sense an opportunity. And so I just played it carefully, made sure my website was stable and cleaned up, and that I had an advisory for pilots that I put out there that was pretty professional and presented the issue. We published over 50 papers on the subject, and we can't get them looked at anywhere because science won't touch them, you know. Yeah. But there they are, and now they're looking at them, and they're not good papers. Okay, these are the best we could come up with what we were doing, but you know, well, where's your evidence? Well, you know, you start with anecdote, you start with story. You know, for 100 years, the Royal Society of Britain, their science society, described gorillas as fever dreams and delusions arising from white people being stuck in the jungle too long. You know, malaria dreams and stuff like that. And it wasn't until they rolled one through London in a cage that people had to step back and reassess, and suddenly, oh, we knew they were real all along. You know? Well, fine, you can let them do that. You don't need to rub their face in being wrong, but you sure don't need to. You don't want to forget how it was, but then how it is. And we're going to end up in the same spot here. We're going to go from everybody laughing every time you say the word UFO to everybody's an expert now, and they knew it all along, and blah blah blah. Right? Whatever. That's the human condition. Bottom line is that we acknowledge it, we engage it, we learn whatever needs to be learned. If I'm crazy, I get to find out I'm crazy, and if I'm not crazy, then I get to learn that. So, and I'm not alone in this push. I mean, there are other people that feel the way I do, that are adamant, that want to move things forward. I just have been in the middle of it. I've been in some of the most relevant areas doing the most focused things I could think of that were effective, and I'd managed to do it without destroying my credibility or reputation too badly, you know. So that's the main thing I would warn anybody in all of this: is be conservative and understate and watch carefully and pick your time.
Know your room.
Yeah, exactly. Know the room, you know. And to, you know, you have to be careful, and the other part of it is to understand the environment you're in. I spent a lot of time studying how our society is around this subject, and that's how I knew when it was okay to move and when it wasn't, when it was okay to talk and when it wasn't, you know. And so you have to check your biases, be objectively aware, use insight, and then formulate a strategy and use tactics that actually work, that'll actually do. That's what I did, and I think others are doing that. I've seen that a little bit out there.
It's good tactic.
I wonder how much the 411 is related to UAPs.
Well, you know, when I listen to it, I hear hooks in there that make me wonder, you know, if UAP are associated with all of this. Never mind the paranormal side of the Bigfoot story.
If you've ever went to any of his lectures, he will not answer the question, but he will definitely point you in his direction.
Yeah. I haven't met the man, but I've been aware of what he's doing, and it's curious. It's curious. I know what I've been through, and I know what other witnesses that I trust have been through, and so it's not off the table with me that this could be part of it. There was some story that around Holloman with Eisenhower and making an agreement with them at Holloman Air Force Base.
Yes, that is correct.
And I have to wonder about that. whether any of that has anything to do with what we're dealing with here or not. If you guys remember that flight of TBF Avenger torpedo planes that disappeared off of Florida, training flight years ago, and how much hay was made out of that. It started off, I think, with Charles Berlitz and his book on the Bermuda Triangle, which was the first book on the Bermuda. Then all the grifters jumped in with their books on the Bermuda Triangle, and of course that story kept getting repeated and repeated and repeated. But what people don't realize is that at that time, to be a pilot, you didn't need a college education. You could fly for the military if you told them you wanted to fly for the military. They would, if you want to be a fighter pilot, they'd hand you a pair of boxing gloves and slug it out with all the other candidates, and they'd pick the top 20 that were still standing and train them to be fighter pilots. And so then instrumentation was primitive compared to today. Magnetic compasses, they didn't have electric compasses. If they had electrical systems on the plane, it was big copper wires and big screws and plywood, and there was no solid state anything. And the chances of making a mistake in navigation and stuff were much higher. And then they found one of these planes out there in the ocean. They identified it by the engine block number. So here's a story that has persisted forever and to this day, and yet airplanes have been disappearing all along for the most mundane of reasons. We're having glaciers melting, and we're finding planes that were lost. So you want to be careful about handing everything over to the paranormal without really understanding the whole situation. And that being said, I can name 2 pilot cases where the last things that were said by those pilots were that they were being confronted by something odd, and they were never heard from again. One of them off of Dominican Republic, and the other one out of Australia. So there's that.
So, do you believe there is something to the Bermuda Triangle?
No, I believe there are a lot of places in the world where planes and ships disappear. A lot of them, and again, over time, the further back you look, the more primitive our equipment is, the more primitive our understanding of the weather is, the more primitive our understanding of electrical effects are. So there's reasons to think that a lot of that is just bad luck. But I'm not going to discount anything entirely, because I do know there are places where you can go and see truly anomalous and weird stuff, because I've been there and I've done it. I don't know if you know who Erling Strand is.
Name, but
yeah, he's run the Hesdeland project in Norway for the last, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years, 35 years. He just retired. And at Hesdeland, they've been documenting lights and other things there for that entire time. They put up automated camera systems to detect it, and document. And you can go to the website. I think it's hesdelandproject.org, and you can see live footage coming off of their site. And he's an engineer or professor of engineering at Oswald College, so pretty bright guy. I met him out in the American Southwest at a site in the desert, and we saw things there. And then I went out there with somebody else. We saw things, and then I went out there with my own team, and ended up in a really bizarre set of circumstances with light phenomena at very close range around it. So there are places where things happen. So I'm kind of on the fence. I don't, the Bermuda Triangle as it's sold doesn't move me, but I do know there's places where things happen. We need to look closely at those. I lived in Hawaii. I split my time here between Alaska and Hawaii, and I became friends with the priestess that kept the temple where Captain Cook was killed at Kealakekua Bay. And I was very involved with the community there because I teach freediving, breath hold diving. So I'm in the ocean all the time. And it's something that the local kids want to learn, and the parents want their kids to know and want to learn themselves. And there's new science around all of it, so it's safer to be a deep diver, breath hold diver. And So I've been teaching that for a long time. And so the priestess Akka comes up to me one day and she goes, "You into UFO thing, huh, bro?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." You know, she's college educated, okay? She has a degree in psychology and a degree in law, right? But she speaks Hawaiian pidgin, okay? And she says, "Bruh," she said, "the UFOs, they come out of the water right over there. They come in, they hover over the poly, they collect the mana. They collect the mana, and then they go Malka up to the Keopuka and then disappear in the Keopuka by choice mark." And I'm like, because I'd heard this story before. I'd heard UFOs had been seen in that bay many times by lots of people. And so she came and she told me that, and I kind of filed it away in the back of my head. And in 2015, in January, I go out and I'm sitting on a rock near the temple on the beach. And I look out to sea, and out of the water comes this orange ball of light. And in it comes out of the water, and then it moves towards me. And in it is a flying saucer. So the thing, it starts to come in to the beach. And when it gets fairly close, there's two guys fishing for bonefish over on the, there's a concrete bulkhead over there. And so I yell, "Hey," and they turn and they look at me, but they didn't look up. This thing didn't make any noise, right? And it wasn't shining light on down, so they didn't look up. And so I go, I point up as this thing is like right over my head. It was less than 100 feet over my head. And oh shit, you know, they saw it then. And then it, all of a sudden, it just flared up into a blob of plasma. And it did it just bonk like that. And I felt the air displace. I felt my hair move. No heat. That tells us something. It's not thermodynamic equilibrium. And then it proceeds as a glowing blob. It goes up the ravine behind me, up over the ridge line, and disappears towards Keopuka Heights. Well, puka means hole, tunnel, or passage. Keo means white, clear, or invisible. And they've named the subdivision Keopuka Heights. Okay, there's no, people don't speak Hawaiian, but there it is. And it was the way the witnesses have been telling me. And for 15 seconds, I got to look at what they got to look at. Didn't have anything to do with me. It wasn't one of my follow me around type experiences, but I got a really good look at what people are calling a flying saucer, and some of the tech. And I talked about that at my AIAA presentation, because this orange ball was very defined. It was a globe, right, of orange light with very defined edges like a bubble around this thing, and it filled the bubble perfectly, okay, as a disc inside of it. And I posited the idea that what we were looking at is the emission spectrum of helium, that this thing was radiating either RF frequency or probably RF frequency to generate this plasma ball. And that got, okay, now there's data. Scientists are looking. Even as I'm speaking and giving my presentation, they're in the chats banging away on this thing, arguing about, emission or absorption, this kind of thing. They weren't questioning my veracity. They were working on, I gave them something to go on. And this is the problem with anecdote. It's not technical enough. That's why science doesn't engage, is because there's no numbers. You can't say, okay, I saw it was going 6,000 miles an hour and it weighs a ton and a half. Well, if you know those things, you can start doing math. There's science and physics to be done, but you don't have that. All you've got is a story. And a guy he can stand there with a pencil and wait, but there's nothing for him to work on. So that's kind of where we've been. And the ones that have been successful are folks like Dr. James McDonald, or atmospheric physicist, right? He brought his pencil, he did it for it. And others that were able to divine information out of anecdotes. So
I'm speechless. Glenn's just over there grinning. So you see, this stuff always fascinates me. especially A, when they know their stuff. 2, they do the research or they're involved. And 3, when they have true experiences, not once, but throughout their life. That makes me wonder a lot, you know?
You know, I got into
I
this in 1990. I had been sitting in front of CNN, and Major General Wilfred de Brouwer, Belgian Air Force, came on to CNN, and he had radar camera footage of something that he was asking why my F-16s can't catch this. Who does it belong to? And of course, for those that know a little bit about it, Belgium had a wave of sightings involving triangles and discs and spheres, balls of light. And they were seen by police and civilian and military, and pursued by military aircraft. And I sat up when I saw that, and I said, damn, you know, I'm way above the statistical average for these kinds of exposures. I wonder what this is about. And so I spent 7 or 8 years studying like crazy as a layman. I wasn't involved in ufology. I wasn't, you know, I was no force in the field or anything. And then I started having my exposures again. And then the last one, which brought Dr. Haynes into my life, he came to our sailboat within 6 hours or so of me reaching out to the PR office at Ames Research Center. And then all of a sudden I'm fronting for the top minds in the field. I've got Jacques Villey, you know, was on our executive advisory committee. Jacques been involved since Project Blue Book. Dr. Haynes worked with Joe Hynek, you know, who was also Project Blue Book. Knows Dr. Villey very well. They're peers. And then Dr. Bernie Heisch, California Institute of Higher Physics, also involved. And then Dr. Jim McCampbell, who collected a lot of pretty good physical trace evidence, and did a lot of electrical related studies on like why engines fail when they're around these things. So all of a sudden I've gone from being a literal nobody to fronting for these guys. I didn't make a program, I didn't design it or anything else. Well, I did, but I did it with them. And then they mentored me. So basically I got to learn about science and publication and research standards and proper attitudes about moving information, all of it. And then I applied business to it because that was my side of it. I'm business oriented. And, you know, so between the two of us, we had enough going on that we did good. In 2010, I started getting Chilean Air Force generals in my email. And that led to us signing the first international research agreement with a government research team. And then in 2014, we got invited to present at the CNES GEIPAN conference, the first one they'd ever done. And then, of course, just a month ago, I spoke there at their second conference, at their invitation. So, you know, it was a matter of following business standards and practices the best we could, adhering to science standards and practices the best we could. There's no aliens on my website. There's no talk about aliens on my website. It's purely about where we're at from science's perspective, which is we're seeing unusual things out there, and that's as far as they've gone. They can infer, but they don't. But the actual data, the actual science is about understanding these things and how they do what they do, and that will lead to an understanding of what they are. And even though those of us who've seen these things have a pretty good idea what they are, science has to get there one step at a time, rationally. So you need to stay out of the way and let them do that. And if you can help facilitate that, you know, with data or information, then do that. But it'll never work if you stand on a podium and say, you've got to believe me, these things are here and they're our friends and they're going to do this and that. That's just, you're never going to get anywhere with it. And it was quite obvious. So we took the long road. And that's
two things. First thing I think about, I can walk outside and there could be a UFO that's a mile long, a mile wide, and I would never know about it. That's nuts. Glenn, that's crazy.
Well, take a look at what was over Phoenix. The air controllers talked.
Yeah.
The air controllers talked about that one. That was in March of '97. And this thing was right over the Phoenix airport. You know, and it was massive. One of the witnesses said that you could park the whole fleet of B-2 bombers we had on one wing of this thing. They asked, the Tim Lay family on the ground estimated it was a mile from wingtip to wingtip. It was a boomerang shaped thing, a chevron shaped device with lights on the bottom of it. But it wasn't the only one. There was actually a number of incidents that had happened from a year or two before leading up to that. And Dr. Lynn Katai got a bunch of photographs and did a bunch of photo analysis. Dr. Maccabee and Jim Delatoso and some of the other guys weighed in on some of the photo evidence and did some work on it and derived some very good information about that. I'm in the process right now trying to figure out how to get that info in front of people that need to see it. You know, and so they can ask more questions. So, you know, we're really just coming in this formative moment, you know, where we go from the stories and legends to hey, this might be real. You know, how do we go about looking at it? How do we go about validating that? And so they're still in the process of validating, even though ODNI and the government's kind of come out and said, oh yeah, they're real. And some of them have daunting technical signatures. So, you know.
Yeah.
I really don't see that happening soon. Gosh, I can see, what was it, World of the Worlds you and I talked about on the phone?
Yeah.
The mass hysteria, the mass suicide. And that was a radio show.
You know what? I'm gonna throw something out there for you guys on that story, because I heard a completely different take on that. And that was that there were no mass suicides or anything. Everybody knew it was a radio show. And if you listen to it, it's obvious that it's a radio show. So somebody came up with that other narrative of people won't be able to handle it. But as far as I know, there were never any suicides associated with the War of the World broadcast.
Well, that's interesting, isn't that, Glenn?
Yeah, I've never actually researched it, but
well, I just look into it, because that's the way I heard it. Okay, was that's not what happened. And when you actually listen to the broadcast, it's clearly a radio show. You know, it was it was the weekly scheduled Orson Welles radio hour. You know, and they do a radio play, which is a big thing in those times. Mm-hmm. And this one was on War of the Worlds, and it came down on Halloween. And it didn't have the impact that people were afraid that it would. And whoever brought that into the narrative was trying to come up with excuses for not engaging, you know, and not talking about it. I think it was the Brookings Institute that kind of offered some warnings about that, said that the folks that would have the hardest time with it would be engineers. And all of a sudden I'm herding a flock of engineers, and I'm concerned about them because they're very interested in how these things do what they do. And when they start thinking about why, they might need some help. And that was another reason why I started working on the UAP Medical Coalition, was to shore up the other side of it, you know, because as people start engaging this, you know, believe me, if you feel hopeless now, how hopeless would you feel thinking there was an alien occupation going on? You know, what kind of damage?
They walk among us right now, evidently.
Well, you know, that's what some say. And I really don't argue with any of these things, because all we know about right now is seeing the vehicles come and go. We're not. So there could be a whole lot of stuff going on there that we aren't aware of. And
well, evidently, that's my taking.
Well, I don't think that if there's a they, that if they are as active as they are, that there's got to be more that we don't know, you know, and that it could very much have something to do with that. Now they
well, my second part of the question And going back to the first about mass hysteria and suicides, is that was documented and reported on several shows and secondary news channels. But that is something Glenn and I need to look further into, since you stated that, 'cause we want to make sure on any of our shows, we want fact checkers.
Well, yeah,
We don't want to go off assumptions or secondhand knowledge. Absolutely.
yeah. So
Now,
take a look at it. I could be
Yeah.
all wet, but I don't think so. And
Well,
when you
be the man.
I mean, it comes in at the top of the hour. They do their advertising. They do the first segment, right? They break for advertising. They do the next segment. They break for advertising. Why would anybody accept that as just
See, now that makes sense.
radio play?
And my second question, and Glenn, you and I talk about this all the time. Why is the government such involved with all the movie productions like Independence Days and some of the other ones? I just don't understand why they scrub the movie so many times before it's released.
Well, that's a great question, because it's a fact. I helped review a paper by a couple of guys. I think it was Graham, and I'm really sorry, fellas, if I can't remember your name, the co-author, but they engaged that whole subject. And I think you and I talked about that movie, Escape to Witch Mountain, the Disney movie that had a lot of Air Force input on it, and it started as a paranormal story and ended up with two little kids getting on a flying saucer and going away. And why would the Air Force consult on something like that, other than to steer the narrative? Why else would they do it? An intelligence operation, and they've done it with a lot of stuff. I actually kind of avoid all the Hollywood everything around the subject, because I've seen it, and I don't need to fantasize about it or anything. It's reality is enough for me to deal with every day.
Do you have problems seeing it or watching it on TV if it comes across?
Not so much problems there, but there are times when I have problems going outside and looking up.
I would too, with your experience.
And it isn't that often. I mean, a couple of dozen times in 62 years. None of them lasting more than apparent few moments. A minute or two or 15 minutes or something like that. That's a very short time and a long lifespan. But it's enough that there are days when I just do not want to go outside and look up, and I have to force myself. I live remotely in Hawaii. I live out in the bush, and I'm exposed out there. I'm vulnerable, and they don't allow firearms and stuff in Hawaii in any real way.
Really?
But then I live out here in Alaska, and got a 338 in the corner over there, and
everybody's got a gun in Alaska.
Damn straight when you need one. It's,
yeah.
Did you hear that, citizens of the United States of America? We need to own guns, and I agree. The Constitution was written for a reason, and now he's got me on this subject, and I'm going to briefly talk about it.
It was because we were fighting aliens.
When the Constitution was written, when they talked about a militia, they wanted to make sure that if our country was ever invaded by foreign powers, that we could stand up and defend our country with our government. And it was also written in a way that if our government get out of hand, we can overtake our government and get it back in control.
Oh, my hotline's going
to ring soon. Gentlemen?
I don't know. I'm going to answer my hotline soon, so go ahead.
So that's the way the Constitution was actually written, and I'm not going to say word for word, and everybody is going to debate it. It's said, it's done. So I do agree with that.
Well, I don't know that a firearm makes a lot of difference in these situations.
Not in this one. Not in this fight. No, wrong. You brought a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah. But at the same time, out here, it's open carry. I can go to the store, slap down $700 and walk out with a Kimber 45, and nobody's going to say boo to me, and it'll be done in 15 minutes.
That's what I'm talking about.
My initial check clears, and I run into people all the time carrying firearms here, and we don't have any higher incident of drama around guns than any other city does, any other place. Bottom line is that there's only 700,000 people in the whole state, and it's a third the size of the United States. Nobody's coming to help you when you need it. And you do need to have some options between the bears and the bad guys and the Bigfoots.
I was wondering if he's going to bring up Sasquatch.
Well, they do out here. They talk about it quite a bit, actually. It's not one of these ifs or maybes or, gee, I wonder if they are real or not. You go out to some of these rural communities and, yeah, they don't have time for that nonsense.
Do you believe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied. I haven't seen one, but I grew up in Montana, spent a lot of time walking in the Bob Marshall wilderness. And
oh, wow.
After I learned about some of these things like tree knocks and stuff like that, I realized, oh, wait a minute. There was this time. You remember that time we had the tent set up there at the lake, and it was a 12-mile walk-in, right? So we were the only ones there, my brother and I, and something kept throwing pine cones against the side of the tent.
Oh, yeah.
Been there, done that.
And another time, we were walking through stands of tall pines where there's been a burnout, so there's no brush, right? But you got tall pines. And you're walking along, and every now and then you hear this fuck. And I'm like, well, it must be the tree, something snapping in the wind when the tree, you instantly have an explanation for it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Wait, and I read up on all this stuff, and I listen to the stories of Steve Isdall on factsbyhowtohunt.com and some of the other channels, and those stories are all part of a much bigger story. So I think I've been around the edges of it. I've never seen one. I've never seen it. I've never seen one, but I've talked to people that have, and there are people up here that they're quite comfortable with the idea that they're around, and they pack heavy when they carry. It's just the way it is.
Well, when you said a 338, you mean to do business.
Well, it's kind of a standard guide gun up here. You need something a little bigger than a 30-06.
I'm in Atlanta. It's usually the 9er. So
yeah.
That's a little bit light too. That's light for bears. Although it'd be handy, if the bear gets you, put yourself down with it. That would be,
yeah. There is that option.
But yeah, the reality of it is that'll bounce right off a bear's skull, particularly a grizzly. So,
oh yeah.
So yeah, you need to pick something that breaks a shoulder. And I'll tell you, if you've ever looked at any videos of bears moving on people, they kind of walk like, hey, I'm looking over here and I'm looking over there, and they're kind of sidling up. They get closer and then they charge.
Yep.
And you got no time.
Yep.
Get it up, boom, boom. You're dead. That's all the time you've got, and so you want to be able to hit them hard when you do. And we had the guy was hunting moose here a couple of months ago over near the river, and a bear jumped on his kid. Sal Grizzly tried to take his kid.
Oh no!
Mauled him up pretty good, and he killed the bear, but the kid got savaged pretty good. Another guy ended up on a Sal Grizzly with 2 half-grown cubs, and they decided they were going to eat him, and he dropped the last one right at his feet. So there are tragedies all the way around. I like bears. I don't want to hurt anything. I'm very gentle in the world that I live in. As a free diver, I run into sharks. Well, I've got no beef with sharks, and I swim with all kinds of stuff, and I see bears out here, and I got no beef with bears. But I carry an 870 pump with slug, or I carry a guide gun, because it may not be my choice.
Right.
I like to think my fellow human being's a good guy and everything, but he may put me in a position where I don't have a choice. And when it comes down to that, it's going to be him, not me. If I have anything to say about it, and if it involves protecting somebody else, I'll be just as adamant.
And like I tell people that go out squatching or on expeditions, take something with you for protection, and it may not be for Sasquatch. Don't get me wrong. And I have several stories from interviewees that interviewed, but being on the police department out in the country, you would be surprised how many mess labs you come across stuff. So if you're out there squatching, because you're really out there off the road quite a ways, you may run into a meth lab and it's active or something, and stuff can go down.
Yeah. Same with the bush out here.
So, like
bears and people, and you want to be careful.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what you're doing. Check the room like you always do. And the other thing is that my understanding amongst those who are in the Sasquatch world, that these beings know firearms. Mm-hmm. They know about them. They know what they are. They know what they're used for. They don't like them.
Nope, and that is correct.
And so if you're carrying one and walking in the bush, you're either inviting complete and total avoidance or aggression, one or the other.
That usually is correct.
When they see that, it's just a bait away. It's not that they have respect for firearms and what they do, but I think it's more just about, I think they have a core philosophy of avoiding human beings always in every circumstance, best they can. And when we rub up against them, then it's territorial issues. And curiosity sometimes, kids playing pranks like we did when we were kids, this kind of thing. But yeah, I'm a big believer in firearms. I'm a pretty middle of the road voter. But when it comes to those, I really believe that, we should have access, and it should be fairly unlimited. I've got some issues around combat arms, because I come from a time when sporting goods stores weren't filled with combat arms, combat platforms. They were hunting platforms, wood stock, beautiful sporting rifles, And if you don't think that you don't think my 308 isn't just as effective with a wood stock on it as your AR-10, then you're missing the point,
Right. No, exactly. I agree. I understand. But I still take the AR-10.
Well, and that's an option. But the thing is that, like I have a SOCOM 16 clone, right? A M14.
Oh, wow.
There's 308, right? It's semi-automatic. Put a barrel on it, barrel magazine, 50 rounds, 308. It's only good out to 300-400 yards the most, but what the hell?
Right.
Yeah, but 130 caliber rounds enough. You put it where it needs to go. Damn thing will go through a telephone pole.
Like my dad said when I was growing up, when we used to go deer hunting for his MS got bad, he always knew I shot a deer because there's always only one shot.
Right. Get him that nerve bundle and knock him down.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes. And there is such thing as suppressing fire, and then it's kind of nice to be able to keep their heads down while you're trying to get from point A to point B. But how many of us are living in running gun battles like that? And my stepdad's a big fan of revolvers, but he's a guy that can. I've seen him shoot clay pigeons with a revolver.
Oh wow!
Yeah, man, vet, sniper, gun guy, loads his own rounds, all that stuff. But I won't. I need a magazine, right? And I love my 45.
Oh, I do too. I mean, my dad and I went deer hunting, and he got real cold. When he gets real cold, he loses feelings in his legs. He's like, let's go back up the truck and warm up. And I was like, damn, it's a long walk. Okay. So we went up to the truck, got warmed up. Then we said, all right, let's go. And he was walking down the side of this hill. And I'm like, stop, look to your left. And he used a 44 mag contender, single shot. He drew up, and blow, and it dropped right in its tracks. And then I heard a bunch of leaves rustling. And here comes another doe running at a good stride. So I dropped my rifle, and I had a Glock 21 in the shoulder rig. And I went, pop, pop, pop. My dad was like, quit shooting. I was like, pop, pop, pop. And I said, I got it. He said, no, you didn't. So we tended to his deer. And we're back up the truck. And I said, I'll be back. He said, what do you mean? I said, I got it. He said, no way. And, you know, you dropped it. And I said, I'm telling you, I got it. So I start putting my gear up and, you know, getting my Hunter Orange on. And I was starting leaving the area from where he was at. And he's like, hold on. I'll go down with you. You're not going to find anything. So I went 40 yards from my last shot to the right by the creek. And it was laying in a thorn bush, just laying there. He was like, I would never believe that if anybody would ever tell me that.
Yeah.
And out of all the shots that I shot, I only missed it 3 times. That was in the beginning. Because,
Right.
you know, you had to trail it.
Catch up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I watched my stepdad drop a coyote with one shot at a dead run with a 44 mag.
oh, wow.
Ruger 44 cowboy pistol with long barrel, you know. So yeah, you know, there's a lot to be said for firearms, and there's a place for them. They're just a tool, and for some job.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are a no-kill show, so I don't want anybody to present what we're saying that we're out to kill any unknown creature or cryptid or anything like that.
I would think that zapping a Sasquatch would be murder. I don't. But frankly, you know, I spent 4 days out walking around looking for moose in end of August, and kidding myself that I was going to kill one, but we were already in snow up towards Ely, up north of where I'm at here, and so they were all hunkered up. We weren't going to find any, and I was relieved. I walked out of there going, I feel a lot better. I get home and there's moose in my yard. 100 feet from the freezer, right? So it's the way it goes sometimes. I was relieved though. I didn't have to shoot anything. I there's a part of me that doesn't want to. I don't really need to. And when you pop one of these things, you got to haul that out of there. 500 pounds of meat. That's why you want to get it when it's cold. So it doesn't spoil on you because.
Yeah.
You gotta dress it and walk it out of there. Plus, it's right at the end of the season, so the bears are all looking for food, and so you really got to glass out the area before you zap them. Make sure that you're not going to end up, being down in the scrub and have Ma Grizzly come to argue with you about your dead moose.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a lot of thought that goes into this when you're out in the bush, and frankly, I bring the stuff along to have it along, but my killing days are pretty much over. I don't really have an urge to hurt anything.
I haven't been hunting at all in many years, so
yeah,
that's for sure.
I just keep it all around, keep it handy, and have it when I need it. It's just have the right tool for the job in case it's called for.
I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah.
Goes and goes.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
So, but I have my reasons for having some. So if people know my past.
Sure.
So that's why I shave my head and have a long beard. That's how I got my name Grizzly. This guy over here, Sport Cat. And it stuck. And my mom hates it. She's like, when you come over and say the name, I'm going to shave it off. I'm like, the heck you are? I look so funny now with that one.
Oh, man.
So
you look pretty funny with one, too. So.
You know, the guys at the AIAA refer to me as a graybeard.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's funny.
Those of us who are founders and who have been in the process a long time are graybeards, and I'm literally one.
That's funny. So how does people get
growing
on
up?
your website?
Well, those handlebar stashes, that goes right back to the 70s there.
Yeah, fireman, paramedic, go figure.
Yeah, it's an honorable profession.
You're right.
But you were asking about how to reach me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I can be reached through my website at narcap.org. It's Ted_Rowe at narcap.org. There's a phone number on the website. I tend to answer it. Or you can leave a message and I'll get back to you. I try to respond to everybody as I can. Of course, life's getting busier with all of this, so might take a bit, but I can be reached both ways. So.
Well, Green, what do you think?
I'm also in social media. So.
Okay, we're on social media.
On Twitter, it's TedRowe_UAP. My avatar is the Tick. If you know that superhero, he's my guy. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm a Spider-Man guy.
What do you think about Mr. Rowe?
Well, I think he's imparting some good wisdom there. So
we definitely got to have him back.
Seems like an idea, yeah.
Yeah, really. We'd love to have you back. I would definitely have you back on my show.
Well, I'm happy to do it. If you got questions or listeners have questions or something, you know, I try to weigh in a little bit as I can. I'm happy.
Yeah, next time we'll do a little bit more advertising, a little longer, so we get a little better views. We're going to have a lot of rollback views and watchers.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right.
And
well,
in the beginning, it was just Sport Cat and I goofing off and cracking jokes, and then he's like, "You got a private message," and I'm half blind, and I'm like, "I knew not." Then I saw you pop up. I'm like, "Oh, he's here!" So awesome.
Well, you know, there was just a misunderstanding there, and getting me.
And ladies and gentlemen, it was my fault. I'm telling you, it was.
It was. It was his fault. So,
ladies and gentlemen,
find me at SportCat on Twitter. So that's where you can find me.
All right,
I don't get a theme song. You don't ask where you can find me. You just pull me at the end. And
how do people get a hold of you?
At SportCat on Twitter. So
SportCat on Twitter.
I'm sure I've said something controversial today, so somebody will come at me. I've already got some text messages.
Oh Lord!
Yeah, come on, bring it.
Yep, there it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, Grizzly's always on the hunt for talent for our show or my show,
and he found me.
You get a hold of me at Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. That's Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. And I just want to thank our special guest today for being on the show. Thank you. I'm really thankful that Glenn jumped on too to help fill some stuff in for us. So thank you, Mr. Sportcat at twitter.tweety.
Old people in technology, I swear.
Oh, Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world, it's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending. And don't forget, we have live shows, I think, tomorrow. I think we have some at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Then Monday, our new show, Grizzly's Paranormal and True Crimes, starts at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I had the world-renowned famous psychic, Jeanette Lucas. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I know we're going to talk about murder cases, cold cases, missing people cases, some psychic stuff, and also, don't forget, the paranormal. So at this time, we must say goodbye. But until next time, thank you all.